Hello, beautiful souls. My name is Jessie, and welcome back to another episode of Rewire to Inspire. This show where we'll dive into self-love, learn tangible ways to rewire the brain, and discovering your soul's purpose. The goal of Rewire to Inspire is to encourage listeners to begin doing the hard work, to get curious and open to maximizing your life. Our mindset shapes how we live. Depending on life events, traumas, and personal experiences, our mindsets are all vastly different. However, one thing we all have in common is the ability to rewire our mind, to change the narrative, and to pivot our lives. I hope you leave each episode with the belief that you are so worthy to live a life true to you. I look forward to chatting with you every single Tuesday and Thursday and helping you grow exponentially in all areas of your life. Without further ado, here's today's episode. Hello, you guys, and welcome back to my podcast, Rewire to Inspire. I am your host, Jessie Brown, and I am thrilled to be on the microphone with you all for episode number 82 of Rewire to Inspire. I hope you are all doing so good. If you're listening to today's episode when it comes out, happy Thursday. Regardless of when you're listening, I hope you're having a great day. You're taking care. You're prioritizing your mental health. You're prioritizing self-love. You're doing things that you love. You're surrounded by people that adore you. And I just hope you're all doing well. I'm very energized today, and I'm just really excited to be here sharing with you guys, which is, again, always a sign of being in alignment, being in flow, and living in harmony is when what we're doing and how we feel are in alignment and they feel the same. And anytime we do something and it makes us feel more energized, we thank ourselves once we do it. We feel better after we're done than we did before. That is a true sign of something being in alignment. And that doesn't always mean that we want to do the things, but we always thank ourselves when we do them. So I'm just very, very excited to be on here with you guys recording as always. And I'm so excited to jump into today's topic with you guys. So for today, number 82, we're going to be chatting all about why is it that we can see the potential for everybody else in life, but we have a hard time finding that for ourselves. And then furthermore, I wanted to go into some ways that we can begin to break that cycle. Things and questions that we can ask ourselves, actions that we can do to begin to break that so that we are able to allow our potential to grow as well. Because I don't know about you, but I find it really, really easy to say great things about other people, to see the potential for other folks, to lift other people up, to give them great advice. And yet I have a hard time giving that to myself in return. So I encourage you to ask yourself, have you ever wondered why it is that you can give your best friend advice, but you have a hard time giving yourself that same advice? Or do you believe in somebody so much and what they're doing and their craft and their talents and everything, but you could never think that that could be possible for you? And the thing is I think we all do this to some degree, and I think it varies. But my question is, why do we do this? And furthermore, how can we begin to shift this so we're still able to hold that belief for others, but also hold that belief for ourselves? And I think a large thing that comes up on this topic is selfishness. Why is it selfish to know your potential and to go after something? And I know that that can take time, because now I'm able to confidently sit here and say, I am a podcaster. I know I'm a great podcaster. I know compared to where I'm going to be in 5 years, I'm only 1% of that. But I also know that compared to me a year ago, I am way ahead of that. But sometimes when we haven't held on to an identity yet, or embarked on an identity yet, or don't have anything behind us to back that up, our mind doesn't give us that permission to feel worthy. And if we don't feel worthy, we're not going to take action, we're not going to get results, and we're going to stay in the same spot. And so I encourage you to ask yourself, why this happens. And obviously, us seeing potential for somebody else and not ourselves happens for many different reasons. And there's obviously many different circumstances in which this can happen, right? But what I'm referring to here is our mindset around our internal beliefs around our potential in life. And the first point that really came up when I was sitting here brainstorming today's episode is that identity piece. Because our identity is what's going to cause us to take action. So allow me to go deeper. So basically, if you have the identity, I am an athlete, you are therefore going to do actions that follow suit. eating healthy, staying hydrated, nourishing your body, going to the gym, looking after yourself, because you've held on to that identity that I am an athlete. If you are a podcaster, you are going to hold on to that identity and you are going to show up like a podcaster. If you are a nurse, you are going to show up and do things like a nurse, right? So you can see that what your identity is around something is really how you're going to show up. And that is why in the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, one of the first things he said is, what is your identity? What is your relationship with things? Because it's easy to see the potential for somebody else, but what if that thing is their identity? Let's say your friend is a great artist and they hold on to that identity that they are an artist and they're doing things that, allow them to grow and amplify that and become a better artist. Meanwhile, you're sitting there on the couch watching TV feeling hopeless of, oh, I could never do that. Of course you couldn't, because you don't even have the belief that you could. You don't have the identity that you could. And if you don't have the identity, you're not going to take action. So identity is really the first thing that we have to hone into if we want to grow our potential. And again, our identity can change. I never started with the identity that I'm a podcaster. That came with time, and it can come with time. But if we're holding the identity that I am not something, we're putting a block there, and we're really pushing away the law of attraction from working. Because if we're just holding on to things and pushing it away, why would the universe or God or whatever put opportunities and things on our path if we just keep holding on to that identity, right? We often sit and wait for things to happen, but the thing is things don't just happen. We have to be willing to take action. And I think that is really the first place that it comes onto. So your identity, maybe you want to be a speaker, but you're holding on to the identity piece that you are shy. If you hold on to that your whole life, you're likely not going to be a speaker, right? If you hold on to the identity, I'm not a good drawer, you're never going to encourage yourself to get out of your comfort zone to practice so that you can become an artist. If you always tell yourself, I'm not athletic, you're not going to show up like an athlete. And therefore, of course, that will never be in your potential. And again, we are all born with these quantum gifts, right? We all have areas of our life in which we're going to excel more. Because obviously Michael Phelps was born with very long arms and a lot of other physical traits that cause him and allow him to be the best swimmer. I know that no matter how hard I work, I will never beat Michael Phelps, and that's okay. My quantum abilities are different than his, and that's okay. That's something we also have to remember. But it doesn't mean in no regard can I become the best swimmer for my personal self, right? So you can see that this ebbs and flows. But when we're trying to set these unrealistic goals, or in reverse, these super under-related goals, and we're just staying in the middle, we're never going to hone into our full potential. And so that's the first thing that I want you to ask yourself is, what is your identity that you're holding on to? What is your belief that you're holding on to that you have no problem telling your friend they could do that thing, but you can't tell that to yourself, right? It's something that can become a really, really messy middle. The second thing that I think is why we don't maximize our potential, or we see potential for other people but not ourselves, is maybe you're scared of failure. Maybe you have a bad relationship of failure and what other people might think, right? Maybe holding on to too much what other people are going to think. It can be easy to tell our friend to do something and not do it for ourselves, because that pressure is then on them, and we know that we'll support them and we'll cheer them on and we can give them that validation. But what about ourselves? So what is your relationship with failure? Again, I've chatted so many times about how without failure, we won't learn. Failure is literally such a positive thing in my mind, because that means that you tried and you got new awareness. Now, it is what you do with that new awareness that matters, because if you do something and you fail and you give up and you do nothing with that, there was really no point of trying in the first place. But there's been so many times. Just last week, I had a podcast episode. The audio completely messed up. It stopped at 5 minutes. Luckily, I was recording on Zoom as well through video, so I was able to extract that audio. But it is not the highest audio quality that I would like to use that I'm getting through this other source that I'm using. But it's through that I'm now able to adapt and learn so that doesn't happen again. I didn't just give up and say, well, I'm not going to keep going because I had a failure. No. But we do that all the time, especially if we're more concerned about what other people think versus our own progress, which I think is our biggest bottleneck. We care way too much about what other people think about us versus how our future self is going to feel. Is your future self wish that you would have done something differently, wish that you would have tried, wish that you would have failed more, because it is through failure that we learn. But maybe you've developed a negative relationship with failure based on maybe beliefs from your parents, beliefs about the school system that you grew up in, maybe a coach that you've had. Failure is okay, and we will never truly grow our potential unless we're able to get resilient and okay of knowing that we're going to fail lots of times, but it is through that we learn lessons, that we are able to exponentially grow ourselves even further. The third thing that can help us to tell ourselves that our potential is equally as worthy as our friend's potential, right? Because we see that for other people, but not ourselves. So the third point is you don't believe that you're worthy of accomplishing that thing. Maybe you believe that your friend is worthy of becoming an artist and becoming a professional chef, becoming an athlete, becoming a nurse, becoming a whatever, but you don't feel like you're worthy of that. And again, we don't really tell ourselves that front facing. We kind of have to land on that. But if you lack or are struggling with self-love, self-validation, etc., you might internally feel like you're not worthy. You might not front-facing tell yourself, I'm not worthy of that thing, but that might be deep down. And that's something that you have to ask yourself of, why do you think you can tell somebody else to do something, but you don't think you can do it? It's largely because we don't have the belief in ourselves or think that we're worthy of accomplishing that thing. And if that's the case, what a great place to start. Focusing on self-love, focusing on the conversations that you're having with yourself, catching yourself every time you tell yourself a story of you not being worthy enough. Where does that come from? Does that come from a person that maybe told you that growing up? And if so, knowing it's okay to do your inner child work of healing that. Is that a story that you've just told yourself your whole life as a protector so that you don't get too seen or too vulnerable? Not believing we're worthy is really the biggest bottleneck, because it likely comes from something from our past that's now going to continue to affect our future. And that's something that, again, takes work and is going to take grit and honest conversations with yourself. But worthiness comes from within, and nobody can give that to us for us. We have to be willing to do the work and ask ourselves hard questions in order to be able to heal that piece of us. And the thing about being worthy, going off of that cycle, is if we don't believe we're worthy, again, we're not going to take action. And without action, we're not going to get results. And without results, we're not going to get new awareness. And without new awareness, the cycle will continue and we'll just stay stuck, right? And so that worthy piece is huge. And I think a huge reason why we don't maximize our potential is because we don't think anybody will care. We don't think we're deserving of that. We don't think we could ever possibly accomplish things other people did. But I guarantee you the difference between you and that person is that they've been willing to fail. They've stuck with it long enough. They've been willing to be the student long enough to learn. And they're able to grow that sense of worth through time. So right now, I'm in the process of, and this is going to lead into another point soon, of becoming a certified coach. There are so many parts of me that don't feel like I'm worthy of that. But then the other part of me says, well, why not? Why is there so many coaches out there that I feel like are so worthy of that, and we need them in the world, and we need more coaches, and we need more people like that? And I have to ask myself, where does that come from? I think a large part of it is I think I'm not good enough. And that's something that I have to work through. But the only way that, and I know this to be true, I know that through time and through doing it and through exposure and through learning, I will be able to grow that. But right now I'm sitting at a really uncomfortable spot of not feeling worthy enough to do it. I can definitely sit here and tell my friend, yes, go after it, become a coach. You'd be an amazing coach. I would definitely come see you. But for some reason, I'm sitting here also struggling with that for myself. And so I know that through time and through exposure and through, again, becoming the student and being open to learn and being open to fail and open to hard feedback, that is how we grow and develop that. But I know that it's poking a piece within me that is scared of failing and is scared of letting other people down. So asking yourself those hard questions of where you think that might come from. Which leads into my next point, which is imposter syndrome, which really is kind of the same as feeling worthy, but imposter syndrome is basically just feeling like you shouldn't, like you're not worthy basically of having that, and you don't feel like you should be there, and basically feeling like everybody else is deserving except for you, and it's just too much, and Imposter syndrome is something we all deal with at certain times of our life in different circumstances, and it's okay. It's a part of life. And it's what we do, again, with that imposter syndrome of where that comes from. So again, that really piggies off of the worthy piece. But knowing that imposter syndrome is normally there in the beginning because we don't even have the belief for ourselves that we should be doing something. But again, that really also blocks the law of attraction, because if we don't feel like we should be doing something and we do it, why would other people spend their time? Like, so right now, for example, with my coaching, why would other people choose to coach with me if I just feel like I shouldn't be a coach? It's really blocking the law of attraction when we have those thoughts and feelings. And that's why I did this. I wanted to do this episode, is to raise our awareness and to raise our consciousness of what our relationship is with those thoughts. Do we suppress them? Do we listen to them? Do we fuel them? Or do we take action so that we're able to change those thoughts? But we really have two decisions: listen to them and allow them to control us and keep us small, or use them as signs of feeling uncomfortable and knowing we're out of our comfort zone, but knowing that through exposure, that will just become less and less. And then my last point, before I dive into some tips for you guys to help with all of this, is that you don't know if it'll all be worth it. That is something I hear all the time, but how will I know if it will be worth it? And my short answer is basically, you'll never know if something will be worth it or when the payoff of that will be. But I do know that if something is in alignment and it brings you joy and you're feeling pulled to do something, there is something there, and at least that journey will give you a piece of the puzzle. It might not be the whole puzzle. So for example, podcasting has opened so many doors for me. It's allowed me to meet so many people, to heal so many parts of my past that I couldn't have even imagined. But if I didn't think that it would be worth it, I wouldn't have started in the first place and now have exposure to all these other things. So again, if you don't feel like something's going to be worth it in the first place, it's likely you shouldn't be doing it. But you got to ask yourself the two sides of it, right? Is it not worth it because I don't think it'll be worth it? Or is it not worth it because I haven't seen the outcome yet? We, again, want instant gratification as humans. We want the results. We want certainty. We want to know things will work out. And when we don't know, we're hesitant to take action, because why would we walk into an open field not knowing where it's going to go? But what if everything within you is pulling you towards that field, and there's even an ounce that 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers down the road, you might feel something, you might get a result, but you don't know that unless you start the journey. And again, it's about checking in when we start a journey. Is this still in alignment? Is this still feeling good? Or am I just having a hard time because I haven't gotten results yet? Do I think I'm giving up too easily? My favorite book is behind me, The Compound Effect. The Compound Effect basically says that through enough time, through enough repetition, through showing up every day, inevitably you will see the other side of that. But we give up too soon. We give up too quickly. We see people that are very successful and we get that imposter syndrome of, I could never be that. But you don't know the years and the time that is spent dedicated to their craft, right? Michael Phelps didn't just become one of the best swimmers. Oprah didn't just become one of the best speakers, hosts, influential people in the world. That's happened through time. Tony Robbins didn't just become well known. There's years and years and years and years of work and dedication behind that. And if you're just comparing yourself to the outcome, you will likely always feel less than. You will feel like you're not worthy. Don't compare the beginning of your journey to somebody else's middle or end. It's a disservice, and it's something that we all do, but it's something we need to bring awareness to. So now, let's get into some tips to help with this, right? So with everything that I just said, is definitely some tips, but some more clear ones. The first one, get clear on your desires. Don't do something just because your friend is doing it, unless that thing also sparks joy for you, in which case, great. But be unique, be organic, be original, be you. We each have something to offer this world and to bring into this world. So whatever it is that you're choosing to do, get clear on what your desires are and allow them to be unique to you. I know that it can be so easy in our society to want to just do everything everybody else is doing, but we can't all be doing the same thing. We're all supposed to do unique things. So get clear on what that thing is for you. Second part, off of that, break down your beliefs around it. What are your beliefs about that thing? Do you think it's going to be easy? Do you think it's going to be hard? Do you think you have the tools to do it? What do you need to develop to become the best at that thing? How far away are you from your vision of that in your mind? What are your beliefs around that thing? Do you think that you can accomplish it? Do you think you want to accomplish it? Do you think you'll look back in 50 years and say, thank goodness I started doing that thing. I'm so happy I started. What are your beliefs around the things that you want to do? Notice your thoughts in your body, noticing the conversations you're telling yourself, noticing your beliefs that you have around imposter syndrome, around doing those things. Again, this episode is all about why is it we see the potential for everybody else except for ourselves. Do you have those thoughts in your mind constantly that are saying, you're not deserving, you're not worthy, you could never do that, etc., etc.? Paying attention to that. Catch the thoughts, change the thoughts, release the thoughts. My fourth point, get out of your comfort zone. Again, that cycle of not taking action, not getting results, staying in the same place, that is basically staying inside your comfort zone. Expose yourself. Getting out of our comfort zone slowly with little pieces and feeling comfortable and feeling safe is how our body begins to grow itself. Our mind is always trying to keep us safe, and it'll always keep us small. We have to be willing to get out of our comfort zone, and I'm sorry if nobody's ever told you that. We cannot grow to our max potential with anything in life, absolutely anything, if we do not get outside of our comfort zone. Think about it. Going to school when you were 4 or 5 years old at one point in time was likely out of your comfort zone. And yet you did it, right? Going to a new job on the first day was likely out of your comfort zone, but you did it. Me jumping on the microphone for the first time was actually in my anxiety zone, which is further outside of your comfort zone, but I did it, and now it just becomes a little bit easier. Getting outside your comfort zone in little ways. Maybe it's sending a message to someone you've been hesitating to do. Maybe it's applying for a course you've been too scared to do. Maybe it's volunteering somewhere to get exposure that you've been too afraid to do. Whatever it is, getting outside your comfort zone is how we prove to our mind that we can do something with little exposures. Again, don't traumatize yourself. Again, little t trauma, by overwhelming your system. Do small things that scare you often that will help you grow so we can expand our mind and our resiliency of knowing we can do hard things and we're worthy of doing hard things. Number 5, and I have 6 points for tips. Number 5, be the student. Be okay with being the student. We so often want to be the guide and the leader, and we want to know it all and pretend like we know it all, and we think that that's what's best in society. But we need more people being students, being curious, taking the back seat, learning from other people, knowing that there's not just one way to think. One great way to grow our potential and know that we're worthy of growing our potential is to be the student and to ask questions and learning from those we look up to instead of comparing ourselves to them. Asking, how did you get there? What message would you tell yourself in the beginning if you could? What advice do you have? There's so many ways that we can look up to people without feeling imposter syndrome or wanting to be them. We can simply look up to them and ask for guidance. So being the student is huge. And my 5th and final point is to honor your feelings and what's coming up and what your body's telling you and maybe where that comes from. We often feel these feelings and feel unworthy and feel that we can't do things because we have certain beliefs around it. Again, that was my first point. But honoring where you're at, honoring that those feelings are coming up for a reason, and knowing that you're worthy to change those and to rewire them and to pivot your thoughts. Because again, those thoughts will run you if you don't choose to proactively intervene and run them. That is just how it works. We will tell ourselves the same story over and over again until we get new awareness that allows us to contemplate, that allows us to get a new mindset. But we have to also begin to honor where we're at and where that might come from. If we have a hard time of not feeling worthy, feeling like everybody around us is except for ourselves, that likely comes from something deeper rooted within you, and you're so worthy to know what that thing is to begin to work on it, to heal that, so you can also grow and become the best version of yourself. So I encourage you, my friend right now listening, to ask yourself, if you were to look in the mirror and pretend that that reflection staring back at you is your friend, what would you want to tell them? How do you want to grow? How do you want to evolve? What blocks do you have right? Maybe what areas are you feeling imposter syndrome? Where have you been holding yourself back because you're afraid of failure? Where have you been holding yourself back because you don't know if it'll be worth it? Hard conversations start with ourselves, and that can be a conversation that just stays with yourself, which is what makes it even more beautiful. So I hope you know that you comparing yourself to other people is a natural thing to do, but knowing that your potential is no different than anybody else's. It might just be in a different arena and look different, and that's okay. Again, we all need to be different. We all need to be unique. So I truly, truly hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. I hope you know how worthy you are to accomplish anything you set your mind to and work towards and stick to and dedicate to. And I truly hope that you just take this as a sign that you likely maybe haven't maxed your potential, but how beautiful that is that we can begin that journey and live in that place to maximize that every single day that we are on the face of this earth. So thank you guys so much as always. Happy Thursday, all the love. I look forward to chatting with you all next week. Bye, you guys. Thank you all so much for tuning into today's episode of Rewire to Inspire. I absolutely love connecting with you all, so make sure you're following me on Instagram. I am at Jessie Brown 13. If you enjoyed today's episode, please feel free to leave a review or share with someone you think would enjoy. I look forward to chatting with you all next episode. And remember, get out of your head and into your heart.